right, cool. So on the count of three, tell me what the best thing is that you've experienced here at Planet Anime this weekend. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wow. Got real quiet all of a sudden. Well, I'm glad that the one person that answered said the panels because we are going to get started with our next panel. Our next guest, you know, from some of the biggest franchises in anime and in video gaming, including a little show called Chainsaw Man. Please welcome to the stage Reagan Murdock. Come on up. Hello.
Hey, hey, hey.
Have a seat. So, the way this is going to work is there's a microphone over there. We won't be able to see it because we're blinded, but we will have folks there to help you guys out. If you have a question, this is a Q&A, which means you get to ask those questions. Reagan will answer, and the answers you don't have, we'll just make up on the fly.
Exactly.
And they'll never know. We'll just come up with something totally off the wall.
If I'm pausing for like 5 minutes before I answered, it's just because I'm so good at improv, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But yes, so you're not going to offend anybody by getting up, moving around. That's actually what we want you to do. So feel free to come to the microphone. If you have maybe some anxieties or some mobility issues and you can't get to the microphone or don't want to get to the microphone, just kind of wave me down, and I will bring a microphone to you because we want to give everybody a chance to participate who wants to. So let's get into it. So talk to us a little bit about how you got started in the industry. How did you get into voice acting?
Sure. So, like many others, a very long and painful road.
Right.
So I, as a kid, I was never really all that interested in acting like as a career. I did it, just because it was fun,
Right.
and it's because what mom and dad wanted. Anyway, but
Yeah.
because you gotta get the little shy nerdy kid to express himself somehow.
Yep.
But then around the teenage years, I start. There was this little tiny obscure show that my friends got me into called Naruto, something like that.
I've not heard of that one, no.
Yeah, no, it's very few have, only real ones have.
Okay.
But yeah, it was around that time that I also started getting into this thing called puberty, and that dropped my voice down to this. All of a sudden, people are telling me that I needed to be on the radio and all that jazz. And I was like, that's still probably not going to happen. And then I watched a behind-the-scenes featurette on, I think it was Hetalia, and they said that Funimation was in Dallas, and that was my hometown. And I was like, oh, so I don't have to move halfway across the country and spend 99% of my paycheck on rent? That's great.
Yeah.
So I went to UT Austin, got a theater training, also got a little opera training. That was awesome. And then went to work for a cartoon mouse in Florida for a little bit. That was the job itself was great. Working for that company, not so much. But
I've heard that before.
Yes,
That's what happens when you let a mouse run a company.
exactly. Then moved back to Dallas. Got just started auditioning some more, and kept getting rejection after rejection.
Oh, yes.
That's just how it goes. It's lots of evenings. Lots of time just laying in bed, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering why in the absolute heck did you not go into engineering, you moron? But then some things started clicking. Finally some gigs started rolling in very slowly. And then these auditions came around for this show that I had heard of but knew nothing about called, Chainsaw Man. And I was like, well, they're never going to cast me because, they're going to choose somebody who's a lot better known. But I was like, well, I might as well learn about this while I can. So I started reading the manga. Hoping that the context for the scenes would get me thrown a little bit part down the line, and then I fall in love with the story. Absolutely fell in love with it. Loved the storytelling, loved the characters, just everything about it. And so I did that thing that you're really, really not supposed to do as an actor.
Is want a role.
Is want the role.
Yeah.
By what can be described as nothing but divine providence, I got the part, and that thrust me into the industry in a way that I was very much not expecting, but have very much cherished. Ryan, Colt Levy, Sarah Wiedenheft, they play Denji and Power respectively. Absolutely phenomenal actors and just wonderful people too. We, the first time we all got together, us and Susie Young, who plays Makima, just immediately we all just got each other. You know, we just got on like a house on fire. And it's been that way ever since. And I am just so incredibly grateful for the opportunity to, you know, be able to work with them, to work with people like y'all, you know, get to actually see the impact that these stories have on people. Because not something you get to do a whole lot in voiceover. A lot of the time, it's you go to the studio, you record for 1 hour, and you go home, and that's about it.
Yeah, no feedback.
Exactly, yeah.
Unless it's do it again.
Exactly, right. So suffice to say, thank you all so very much for being here. Really, it touches me in a way that you can't comprehend, and I can't show on TV. So,
fair enough. Were you experienced in the convention scene prior to? Did you go to cons when you were? What did you expect coming into this, being on that side of the table?
I had been to a couple of conventions beforehand. When you're a lonely kid in high school, you don't have a lot of friends you can talk about your really nerdy stuff with. So of course the only place you can do that is online. But of course that means that everybody lives like all across the country, all across the world sometimes, and so not a whole lot of opportunity to meet up until those events come. And so it's just what I associate conventions with, is being able to meet people that you never would have otherwise been able to share a common interest. Because, like, you know, going to conventions, you don't really need to. You know, you can sometimes go alone, because you can often meet people just by knowing, hey, you're cosplaying as that thing that I love too. Let's talk about that. And before you know it, you're going up to dinner with these people, and you know, all the rest of it, and it's all downhill from there.
No, that's the best thing about what I do, is I see those individuals, and then you hear the gasp first, or the squeal, and then they run, and then like the next year, if you're lucky enough to continue to do it, they're to coming as a group, and then the next year you don't see them, and then the next year you find out it's because they were off getting married, and then a couple years later, hey, they're pushing the stroller. So that is, for me, the most fulfilling part of doing this, is seeing the connections made at the conventions.
Absolutely.
And my work is here. It doesn't touch people like you guys do. So
No.
I can't. You know, I imagine that it's got to be really special for people to come and tell you about how, you know, and we hear it in these panels. This performance, this show, whatever, got me through a period of time where I wasn't sure what was going to get me through it, and your work did it. So that's got to be gratifying.
Oh, absolutely. Because especially, well, that's the way that I felt about these kinds of stories as well. You know, I relate to my character Aki quite a bit, especially in some less than pleasant ways. But part of it is that the fact that stories like this were part of what got me through some of the hardest parts of my life. And if I can even be, you know, a fraction of what those stories were to me to somebody else, I will consider my career to be a very fruitful one.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the technical side, moving from theater, moving from an opera background to being in a booth where there's no feedback other than an engineer, maybe a director, matching lip flaps, you know, that kind. Talk to us about dealing with the technical side of the business and how you've overcome that.
Yeah, the lip flap thing is it's a skill. It takes some time to develop. I wasn't. There's a reason why they don't toss big parts to newer actors, is because they genuinely are just not used to the technical aspect of matching lip movements. Because you think you're good at it, and then you actually get in and realize that there's a lot of things you got to learn. Yeah. Thankfully, there are some editing things that they can do to really help you out. I need that a lot. The nice thing about anime dubbing is that there is the image, there is the animation there, so it really it allows you to really focus in your imagination, because you already know what it looks like.
Right.
So you already can have that idea in your head, and you can it really frees me up to focus on what is what is going through this character's head, what is the emotionality of this scene, where is this going, where is it starting. So it's definitely tricky. There's a lot to learn, which is why sometimes you get cast as characters and they wear helmets the entire time, and you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to the floor. Do we have a couple questions down there? Hi, stand up there. Tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Desiree.
Desiree, okay, before you ask a question, Desiree,
Okay.
you have to answer a question.
Okay.
Desiree, what is your favorite breakfast cereal?
Oh, Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, all right.
Acceptable.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll allow that. And what is your question, Desiree?
I'm here with my friends and my boyfriend, watching anime, reading manga together. It's a bonding experience for all of us. We love, obviously, Chainsaw Man, and we're super into Hell's Paradise, and we just really love your character in that, and I'm just so excited to see more. You said that you read Chainsaw Man. Are you also reading Hell's Paradise? That's
I am indeed. Yeah,
okay.
I've read that. Yeah. I love the manga for that. Anime watchers, you're getting a great product as well. I really, really recommend reading the manga for it. The art style, there's a reason why they couldn't quite translate it to the animation because there's a thing called a budget. But the art style is so visceral. There's so much texture going on just in the line work and in the way that the the shading is done. Really, really would recommend it. You get a lot more of the you feel the story more in that one. Was there any else other?
No,
parts of the
yes,
question?
it's beautiful. Thank you so much. It's very
Absolutely.
nice.
Thank you for coming.
Do you typically, if you land a part on maybe something that you aren't familiar with, do you typically do the research?
I typically try to, being from a theater background, usually you have, a lot of time to actually, have a script that you take home, that take some notes in,
Right.
that you spend some time digesting the material. With anime, you go into the booth and the first time you see the script is about 5 seconds before you're about to give your takes.
Yeah.
So not really a whole lot of time. So I prefer, especially on the bigger projects, to actually take the source material, take the manga, whatever it is, and actually, get down to writing it. In fact, during the production of Chainsaw Man, the night before I went in for every recording session, I would just pore over that chapter of the manga, just be like, okay, what's going on in here? And what is he thinking here? Is he? What's his motivation? And I would spend way too much time doing that. Stay up way too late. And then not get enough sleep, be really cranky, and so I would caffeinate, and so that's how I got into the head of Aki, you might say.
Very good. Hello, what is your name?
Hi, my name's Emery.
Emery, your question is your favorite dessert?
Oh, I don't have one. There's so many good ones. I like chocolate pie, I guess.
Chocolate
I don't
pie is a
know.
great answer. That's acceptable, yeah. You have a question?
Okay, so I got to watch you in Heaven Official's Blessing and
sweet.
Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
I really loved your characters, so I was wondering if you had a favorite voice line or scene that you got to do.
Oh, I mean, there's so many. I guess we'll start with the easy one with Heaven Official's Blessing, because there's a great line that James Cheek wrote for that. He's also the voice of Hua Chung, and it was how'd you seduce trouble this time? The implications of that, I'm sure you already understand.
Yeah.
For Chainsaw Man, there's so many scenes I love for so many different reasons. Obviously, for comedic, you can't really beat Nuts or Nothing. A lot of people ask me, are you okay? Did they actually, hit you in the... No, I just personal experience. I was a nerdy kid back in high school, I would say that my favorite scene for Aki is in the final episode when, episode 11 closes out with Aki getting choked out by the ghost devil. He is genuinely about to die. That's what the eye closing thing means. And then it flashes back to the first time that he shared a cigarette with Himeno. And that really struck me because, all this time, the only thing we've heard about him for his motivation is just motivation of destruction. I want to kill the gun devil, which is not only impossible, it is an objective of essentially hatred. He wants more than anything to kill this thing. But in his final moments, he's not thinking about that. He's not even remotely thinking about his pain or his trauma. He's thinking about the first time since this horrific thing happened to him that somebody showed compassion, that somebody wanted him to keep going, somebody wanted to share something with him. And it's at that moment that the ghost devil drops him because it can't see him anymore, because he's not afraid.
Yep.
And it's not because he's standing up to the ghost devil. He was already doing that. It was because he's focusing on what he loves rather than what he wants to destroy. And I hope he turns that energy on himself at one point.
Yes, absolutely. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
for
so much.
voicing all the wonderful characters. You do an amazing job.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Really means the most.
Hi.
Hi,
What is your name?
Sam.
Sam, your question is, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes,
All
Good.
right. Very good.
it does.
Good answer.
So, I just plugged my ears for the whole last question
Because you
answer
didn't want to be spoiled.
because I am only on episode 5 of
Okay.
Chainsaw Man.
Hey.
My question was, how much emotional damage am I in for?
How much emotional damage are you in for? Is your question?
None. It is Chainsaw Man is one of the great, it hurts so good kind of series.
Yeah.
And even if you do get spoiled, I will say knowing what happens doesn't diminish
Doesn't
the
help.
actual journey of getting there, the whole storytelling. I'm a kind of guy who really likes a story that rips your heart out. And Chainsaw Man is definitely one of those, but it's also it's kind of one of those stories where the characters, in defiance of how horrible everything is, how much tragedy there is in this world, they still have hope and they still keep going. I don't want to spoil anything, but we know Denji's backstory of horrible things happening to him. Well, unfortunately, bad stuff will continue happening to him, and yet he just keeps going, and it's for seemingly stupid reasons. He in the first few episodes, his motivation is I want to touch boobs, and it seems so dumb to us, but it's more than anything he could have asked for in his previous life, and so just the appreciation that he has for the life that he does, in a way that a teenager with a healthy libido would, is you can't really help but be inspired by it. I think, especially people like me tend to overthink things. Sometimes we need to be reminded that it's the simple things in life that really make it worth it.
Sometimes it's just touching boobs.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
What is your name?
Liz.
Liz. Question for Liz is cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Good.
Okay.
And my friend is a cat person, so she just gave me a look.
Mm.
My question for you is, with you being relatively newer to voice acting, what surprised you the most, like, that you weren't expecting when it came to voice acting and being in the booth?
The specifically the part in the booth, or like,
Or just in general with voice acting, like going into it, what did you not expect that, like, just like, oh, this is new?
Sure. Let's see. Well, for one thing, like I said, I was not expecting to be in anything this popular nearly this quickly. Gosh. The call that I got the part in Chainsaw Man was certainly a surprise. I got that. I was in the middle of a shift at my day job. I was a delivery driver, and so I just got an email from Mike McFarland, the director, saying, "Hey, just can I give you a call? There's some casting information I need to tell you about." And I might be breaking NDA if I say that, but there was another show that also had auditions going on, and I was like, "Oh, it's probably for that one." And then he calls me and he's like, "Hey, just wanted to let you know that I sneak off into the corner of the break room, and he's like, just wanted to let you know that I've been chosen to be the director of this show Chainsaw Man." And I was like, and so he's like, "And we would like you to be our Aki." And I was like, "Great, that's awesome." So I tried to stay as calm as I could during the call itself, because there's people around. You don't want to you want to keep it on the
Don't
DL.
wanna scare them.
Yeah, exactly. But then as soon as the call was over, I did not talk to anybody. I walked right out to my car and I just started screaming at the top of my lungs. I was so happy. And then I found out that they wanted us at New York Comic Con. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I am not the most social guy in the world, and the idea of being looked at by that many people at one time was really, really scary to me. And I forgot to ask during the call, who else is in the cast with me. And so I was kind of alone and spiraling for a little while. But then a little while later, I get a Twitter DM from this gentleman, Ryan Colt Levy. Now, I had worked with him once before on this show called The Saint's Magic Power is Omnipotent. If you have seen that show, you know that the character that the dynamic that our two characters have is exactly the same as Denji and Aki. So Caitlin Glass called it. But he DMs me, and it's just a bunch of clapping emojis. And I was like,
How do I read that?
does he know? Because in the entertainment industry, we've got this little thing called NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. We cannot talk about it, or we might lose our jobs. So I just had to be as generic. Oh, thank you so much for the support, yada yada yada. And he's like, uh-huh. And he just waits for me to put the pieces together. And of course, I was so happy when I found out, because not only did I know that he's just
He's a sweetheart, isn't he?
And like when I first saw him on social media, like all of his positivity posts and stuff like that, I was just thinking, okay, what's this guy really think? Because it could possibly be that charming and thoughtful and generous, and yet Ryan Colt Levy exists.
Even more so than on social media.
Even more so, exactly, yeah. And so just knowing that he would be there, I didn't know Sarah or Susie at the time yet, but just knowing that I wasn't alone in this really helped me to get over myself a little bit, realize that it's not about a bunch of people looking at me, it's what can I do for them, how can I make this story mean as much to them as these stories have meant to me. I guess this is a very roundabout way of saying what surprised me is just how much people have responded to it, and how overwhelming that has been. Just to see, especially after a long time of rejection, of thinking maybe this isn't the right thing for me, of just that confirmation that I'm doing what I need to be doing. So thank you all so very much for that, and thank you for your question.
Yes, and we love you as Aki. So.
Thank you so much.
Come on up. What is your name?
Hello, my name is Colin.
Colin, your question is midnight or noon is the question for you.
I'm going to go with midnight.
Okay.
Good.
Unapologetically.
Unapologetically. I like it. You have a question. Go ahead.
Yes. So when you were voicing Zunisha,
Yes.
how did you come up with the voice? Were you coached on it, or was that all you? And also, how did they make those like giant elephant sounds, like when he roars and?
That is a thing. So, it's a funny story with Zunisha. That was one of the first roles that I got at Funimation. So I got the first role I ever got was for this show called Mars Red, and then I was like, okay, I got in one show. Maybe a couple of years from now I'll get a bit part in something else, and then I get called in by Mike McFarlane to do One Piece, and I was like, but then they cast me as this elephant guy, and it's like, is he gonna be like, hey, you're gonna be this whole island? And I'm like, great, absolutely. But at the time, literally, there were no actual lines for him. My lines were, and so that was what I did, and they basically just kind of pitched that down a little bit, added a little bit of echo. So that's how the roar came about. We did not know. I had no idea that character would ever come back. And not only that, but mild spoiler alert, that he would end up being basically the WWE hype man for the One Piece equivalent of Super Saiyan. So I'm just like, I need to give this everything I've got. So finding the voice for Zunisha wasn't all that difficult, because you know that you are going to be an elephant the size of a continent, and you are 800 years old, and so just bringing that down and slowing everything to a crawl. That was how it worked out, and then I loved doing the scene with shall we say, the hype man scene, because Emily Fajardo was the director, and she explained basically, and this was stuff that I had no idea about, that Zunisha had a relationship with Joy Boy back in the day, 800 years ago. They were like best friends. So she was just like, yeah, just imagine imagine a dog getting to see his master again. And I was like, there, got it. And so that's how that scene came about, and that is the whole reason I was able to put my whole prodigious elephant backside into it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Good question. Hello, come on up. What is your name?
Liz.
Liz.
Liz?
Question for Liz is. Ooh, I'm running out of questions. Red or green?
Red.
Red. Not even hesitation.
Y'all have had wonderful answers to these questions.
Right. With no context at all. You guys are like on it.
Mhm.
What is your question, Liz?
Is there a character from another anime that you think Aki would be besties with?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I think he and Zoro would get along pretty well. I think he'd be his, yeah. Especially with them being knowing what it's like to be kind of father figures to a bunch of crazy children and little gremlins running around. Love that. When I was first reading Chainsaw Man, I was like, oh, so Aki's the Sasuke of the group. I feel like he would maybe get along with Sasuke for a little bit, but then realize that Sasuke needs to really, really get over himself. But then maybe in the process he learns that that he also needs to get over himself a little bit too. Maybe just remember that there are people who actually care about you, and so you need to stop destroying yourself. That'd be great.
Good question.
I don't know. What do you think? Who do you think Aki would get along with?
I'd say Megumi.
Nezumi from
Megumi from JJK.
JJK. Oh, okay, yeah. I need to catch up on that. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello there.
Hi,
Hi. What is your name?
Sophia.
Sophia. The question for Sophia is long sleeves or short sleeves? Long sleeves it is.
Demonstration.
What is your question, Sophia?
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, obviously, but I'm very curious, how often do you Google or search your characters? That can mean whatever you want it to mean.
I thought she was going to say, how often do you Google yourself?
Okay, how often do you Google yourself, and how often do you Google your characters?
I don't Google myself. I'm not that invested in it. I think if I spent too much time thinking about myself, I would spiral into despair. Well, it's funny you ask about Googling my characters. Actually, when I first got cast as Aki, I made the mistake of typing his name in the Google search bar, and a spoiler showed up. But like I said, knowing the spoiler doesn't necessarily diminish the story, and it kind of no, I'm not going to talk about that. I can't say I Google them all that much, but I do love searching, through social media, just, the character names, just to see all the fan art that people have made. People just make amazing art, animation, music, all of it. And it just blows my mind that, that people are just so passionate about this stuff. And people are just so stinking talented. Every time I see a Denji, like a full Chainsaw Man cosplay go by, it blows my mind how, the level of craftsmanship that people have and the dedication. So I can't say that I have the stomach to Google that sort of thing, to look up a whole lot of it, but what I do see from the fans has been absolutely life-changing. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes the fan's contribution to a property, whether it's fan art, fan fiction, whatever, sometimes that does a better job of capturing the characters than the original creator had intended.
And that's the tea.
Absolutely. So talk to us a little bit, having been in the industry for a while, we've seen a lot of potentially disruptive times where, you can go back to COVID, you can talk strikes, you can talk all those things. How have you seen the industry change over the last few years?
Well, it's been an interesting ride. one thing that I was really hoping would stick around with
Remote work.
yes, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, remote work. The fact that so many people from so many places suddenly were able to work for companies like Funimation or Crunchyroll or whoever, because they finally realized, hey, like you can actually do this, remotely. This meeting could have been an email,
Right,
but
exactly.
but unfortunately, that it seems to have reversed at this point, which is a shame because there are a lot of really really talented actors out there who, unfortunately, just due to the fact that they live in a different geography, yeah. I think that's a real shame, but at the same time, I do understand that you know the ability to do things, in studio is a massive, massive help for, the actual people on the ground, the audio engineers and the directors and all that. It makes things a whole lot easier for them. So I understand, but I do think it's a shame. Now there's some changing landscapes with AI going on. And that I'll be honest, there are some ways in which that is kind of really discouraging because I would very much like for my likeness to not be taken away and used for whatever, especially without compensation.
Yeah.
We do not make nearly as much money as people think we do. And I really just want to be able to make a living doing what I love, and that's really all I ask. So I would love to see some more protection for that sort of thing, not only for myself but for all of my colleagues. A whole lot of really talented people, and it's the human connection. Humans have been storytelling for basically as long as we've been a species.
Yep.
Like, it's one of the earliest things It is one of the most fundamental, universal things that human beings do. We tell each other stories, not just cave paintings or like dances or anything. But when we are talking to people, when I am on this panel, I'm telling you stories. You meet up with your friend after work, you tell them a story about what happened today, or you're like, hey, did you hear about this thing? But it's really learning, what you can about the other person from the way they tell the story, the connection that you get from the kind of roundabout way of, revealing who you are as a person through that, I think is the really important part of storytelling. And I hope that's something that we really don't lose just trying to save a few bucks on recording times, getting a computer to do it.
Yeah, well, to your point earlier, like you said, AI, a computer, has not been moved by the manga.
That's the thing.
They're not. There's nothing to bring to it that human element, that connection. That this is what this means. So let's take it seriously.
Yeah, and I'm sure it seems you've met Ryan before.
Oh yeah, Ryan's.
Yeah, his connection, especially to Chainsaw Man and to the character of Denji, is really something to behold. And the way that it has touched him, in a really dark mental place for him, helped him, get out of that as well. Just knowing the fact that it touches people in a way that it can only, affect people, and only people can communicate that to other people. So I just really hope we don't lose that. That's the really important part that I think, regardless of what happens, I would very much like to see.
Yeah, to your point too. I can't think of a person in my life or at doing these types of things that's come up to me and said, "I was really moved by this piece of AI art. That six-fingered man really touched my soul." It's always, I really appreciated what you did, your performance in this game or this anime or this film or whatever. So I think if we want to continue to tell stories as people, we need to continue to let people tell stories.
See, there we go.
Absolutely. Did we have another? Nope, not so much. Okay.
Anything?
Anything?
Random BS you want to know about me?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we switch into let's fill time mode. No. So tell us a little bit, when you're not working, how do you unwind? How do you spend your time? What do you do? What are the hobbies, the things that you do for love and to relax?
So, as I said, I was originally going into like the sciences, and I don't really keep up so much with that anymore. But I really the way I unwind is by collecting knowledge, I guess you can say. I just love learning about history, I love learning about languages. Linguistics is one of my really pet hobbies. I love learning about that. I like cooking. I enjoy I like working out, which was something that I never thought that I would say when I was younger. There was high school physical education is not the best for forming long habits. But anyway,
no, that does more to run people out of gyms.
a lot of the time,
it does
yeah,
to bring them in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that you learn is that it's really not about pushing yourself to your absolute limit every single time. It's like understanding where your limit is and coming up to meet it.
Yeah.
And then when you are recovered is when you go again.
Yeah.
Not 5 seconds later when you're about to, cough up a lung, Coach Hogan.
The problem is that there are people who do go 1,000% all the time, and yeah, they're not the ones you want to be. Yeah.
Not every day at the gym is your Super Saiyan point. You don't have to be screaming at the top of your lungs every time.
Although that would be pretty cool.
It would be pretty
I
cool.
would love to see a viral video of somebody in cosplay going into a gym.
Oh, I've seen that all the time. Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's this one guy at this gym I go to. Like every single time, he's either in a full like Super Saiyan like onesie or a full Bakugo onesie. Like he's just going at it at the squats every single time. Like I absolutely respect the dedication.
Does he like wigs and everything? Like, are we talking
not
full
wigs?
cosplay?
Not full. I think that's a bit too pricey for him to risk on that squat machine. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, you put a lot of work into that. You don't want to ruin it
exactly
with a bad experience. Yeah. So cooking, I can talk food all day. What do you like to cook?
I've actually been I've been on an Indian food kick recently.
Really?
Yeah. There have been a few YouTube channels of just Indian moms. Just like I found that the more low budget and the more like home cooking it feels like, the better it's probably going to end up when you try doing it.
Right.
It's also the more possible it is. You don't have to go looking out for the most super.
This
rare.
only time you can find this ingredient is on the third full moon of the year.
Exactly. Yeah. And not only that, I found out. So you know how you go to the grocery store and you're going to find like your spices and everything. You get the little bottles for like $3.50. We are getting ripped off.
If you can find a good Indian market,
you go to an Indian supermarket. You get a bag like this big. It's like $1.50.
Yeah.
Like it is so much better that way. And also just learning about how different ingredients will interact with each other. How will that change the flavor? Even just learning, this needs a little bit more of this, needs a little more of that. It has impressed my family in ways that I was not really expecting. Even just the bare minimum knowledge of that sort of thing, it can make a huge difference.
That's awesome.
How about you? You do any cooking? Or?
I do more on the eating side than the cooking side.
Good
yeah,
man.
But no, it's a similar situation. At some point, when you become a real adult, you have to learn to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Ramen can only get you so far in life.
Exactly.
So you have to learn.
It can get you pretty far.
It get you into your 20s for sure.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you may have to learn some real life skills. Though.
Mm-hmm.
You're still in the Texas area? You're still in
I'm
Dallas?
still in Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems to me, from what I understand, and maybe you can agree or disagree, you can set me straight, it feels like with a lot of companies, whether you're talking Funimation, Crunchyroll, whoever, that they almost build that in-house repertoire of these are our players. If you think of it in that term of like, we go to these people because we know what to expect. We know what we're going to get when we have these folks.
That is part.
You're finding that as well?
That is absolutely the case. It's part of the reason why so many actors get reused and why it is such a difficult industry to break into, because whatever you can do, they probably already have at least 5 or 6 people who can already do what you do, and they already know that they can not only act, but they can act along with lip flaps, because that is something that the directors have told me a lot of times. They find people who can act, but they cannot do lip flaps, and sometimes it's the other way around, and you have to stick with the people who can actually do the technical side of it. So yeah, that it's a mixed bag, but I think the talent that has stood the test of time especially over the years, getting to show everything that they can do, just showing just how tremendously talented they all are, really puts into perspective with the kind of work that you do as well. It's an inspiration, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I had something in my head just now, and it just went away. Where'd it go?
Welcome to my life.
It's gone now. It's fluttered off. Oh, yes, I know what I was going to say. Yeah, the technical side of it. When it's done well, we don't notice.
Exactly.
Like, you expect the sounds you hear to match up, but we all know when it's really bad. It's the Godzilla effect, right? We
Pretty
know
much.
bad dubbing. So
There's a lot of times that something that we don't necessarily notice. When they do it in Japanese, they don't. I don't want to knock the seiyus at all.
Right.
No, they are amazingly talented actors. They don't pay as much attention to lip movements as we do in the English side. So a lot of times we'll be watching an animation and the characters will be like ba 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 ba. And so we have to actually fill in those lip movements because we don't have the luxury of people actually just staring down at the subtitles instead of looking at the lip animations. So we have to know what we're doing.
absolutely. Is there anybody in the industry, and it doesn't necessarily have to be specific to anime, anybody in voice acting in particular that you look to, maybe not even as a mentor, because that's kind of that has a connotation of like a closeness, but there's somebody who like, I want to emulate that. I would love to get to that point. I love to be able to do what they do. I like how they can call their own shots. I like how they diversified, whatever it might be for you.
There's just so many. Like I said, I got into anime from pretty the teenage age. It was around that time I started getting interested in voice acting in general. As a kid, I was always when I enjoyed an episode of a cartoon, my favorite cartoon was SpongeBob SquarePants. Absolute classic. But of course, I want to share that joy that SpongeBob gave with my parents and my family, and so I have to recount the jokes to them, of course.
Yeah.
But now, of course, you're not doing it right if you aren't, copying the voice.
Yep.
Yeah, I have to say it like they do, otherwise it's not funny. So that got me some early practice in imitating people, and so obviously the whole cast of that, Tom Kenny, Bill Fagerbakke, Mr. Lawrence. All of them are absolute just legends, and I've always looked up to them. A little closer to home within the anime industry, obviously Chris Sabat. It's
Right.
really impossible not to
Yeah.
look up to that guy. J. Michael Tatum also, especially Black Butler was one of the first shows I got into, and getting to join the cast of that later on was a bit of a dream come true. So that was awesome. Let me think who else. Crispin Freeman was a big inspiration back in the day. Like, good lord, just went and saw. They recently re-released House Moving Castle in theaters.
Yeah.
And just getting to like go through the whole movie, and then at the end, just Crispin Freeman jump scare.
That is awesome.
Really, really amazing people.
You've talked about doing the convention stuff, New York Comic Con stuff. Is there? Can you think of if you were to go to a Comic Con, a hypothetical situation, and you're in the green room, you're getting your stuff, getting ready to head out to your table? Who is that one celebrity that if they were passing you and you were passing them, that you would have that kind of fangirl moment of, oh my God, that was just
luckily I've been able to do that a few
really?
times.
Like with who?
So Ryan, as you know, is one of the most effusive, charismatic people. He is a walking charismatic singularity. And he of course already knows all these people because he's actually brave enough to just go up and talk to them, which I am not.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I can see him.
And so he was like, "Hey, have you met Rob yet?" And I was like, "Which Rob?" And he's like, "Rob Paulson. You want to go in?" It's like, I mean, yeah, kind of. And so, yeah.
Again, talking about sweethearts in the business.
Oh,
Another
absolutely.
absolute
Yeah,
sweetheart.
we just spent the whole conversation just talking about how amazing y'all are and how wonderful it is that we get to spend time with y'all. He was saying that he's met kids or adults who will come up to him saying, I spent my entire life in the foster care system.
Yep.
And I was going from house to house all over the place, never knowing, a real home. But as soon as Saturday morning came along, I turned on the TV and watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. all of a sudden I had a home and a family, and it's just like,
I mean, it was the sewers, but it was a home nonetheless.
It was a home, sticky home.
Yeah.
But yeah, just and then I remember, walking away and just almost immediately just collapsing because, oh my God, I just met Rob Paulson.
Right.
The
funny thing is, the first time I met him, I had the exact same reaction.
right. That's Pinky right there. Oh my God.
Do the yakko.
Yeah, right.
Be yakko for me.
Yes, exactly. No, you just finding out that a lot of the times I'm a lot more scared than I need to be.
Right.
It's okay to just come up and say, "Hey, I loved your work," and this, that, or the other thing, and you're not, a total burden on their existence. But just finding out, all these people are just people. They just like talking about their hobbies. They just ask them, about, what sports team do you support? All that, the rest of it. And it's the connection that you have to them as a person that is ultimately going to be, obviously the more.
I've always thought that would make a fantastic, YouTube series or something, like taking these celebrities and doing something completely different than what Jay Leno with his cars or whatever it might be. This guy loves to fish. Let's take him out and fish. And oh, by the way, he was also, whatever, He-Man, whatever,
Yeah. Did you know that Mike McFarlane, the director, he's also Master Roshi from Dragon Ball. He's one of the biggest goth and emo fans you will ever
Really?
meet. Oh yeah, every time I go up to meet him, like it doesn't matter when, I'm just like, hey Mike, did you go to any recent concerts? Oh yeah, I went and saw these guys, they were pretty good, that guy, it's always something new, and he's always going to goth and emo night at this one, concert hall. Yeah. Like you wouldn't really expect it looking at him, but like he's really into that. He's really
jam.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, have you guys had a good time this last hour? Yeah? All right. Well, like we were talking about up here, it's all about the personal connection. So if you guys have not had a chance to do so, be sure to stop by Reagan's Table. You can get the photos, autographs, just ask the questions I didn't get to, the questions that come to you throughout the day, or just stop and say hi.
The questions I can't answer in public.
The ones that don't require NDA breakage, that would be nice. But before we leave, guys, we have a request of all you. We'd like to get a photo with you for the convention's social media accounts. So if you guys just want to kind of fill in the space right here up at the front of the stage, we'll come to the edge of the stage here and get a photo with our friends.